Hi guys, welcome to another talk and drive. This time from inside a Honda NSX. Notice I didn't stall. So what's going on here? Well, this is a Honda NSX from Siim, who did the Corvette and the Toyota Supra. You'll notice a couple of changes. My sound is a lot sexier. Found out that if you plug the microphone in the back of the computer, there's a lot less noise, so the voice is a bit less messed up and the image is much better. I've got a new camera. It's basically more or less a test of the camera than anything else. So this is full HD. It's a Panasonic FZ200. I got it out of the States, especially because it does, well, this is boring, but for some reason they live in the past there at Panasonic, and the European versions do 25 frames per second or 50 video, and the American, anything that's NTSC I believe, does 29.97, which is just about 30 or even 60 frames per second. So that matches hopefully better with YouTube and with screen refresh. So I've set the camera to 1/60 of shutter time, so perhaps that's in sync as well, or it'll look horrible, we don't know. But we are at Suzuka in the NSX, and if you've wasted 1% of my time, the time that I've spent on YouTube, you will have seen Ayrton Senna drive the Honda NSX. He actually drove two types. The regular one, which we are in now, which is the regular NSX from 91, and he also drove the NSX-R, and you can tell them apart, the videos. The regular NSX, he drives a red car, and the NSX-R is a white one. And you can clearly see in the video where he drives the regular one, there's a lot of body roll and wallowing, and you can see the body roll here. So we're trying to make that car, and the 3D model and the cockpit is all work in progress. Slow down. But this will be out soon, or no, not soon, eventually. You try to talk and drive, it's bloody hard. So Siim and me are working on this, and this will be downloadable at some point for rFactor. And I think we'll do both the stock regular NSX and the R model. And boy, this is just, it's a bit of a background story here. My first car for rFactor was the Corvette, also with Siim, because I wanted to do more physics, and he had a really nice 3D model, and I figured the two go together quite nicely. But the Corvette is an incredibly fast car. It's really up there, despite what the Europeans, well, I think we no longer believe this, because since the Z06 and the ZR1 you kind of have to take the Corvette seriously, but it's always been a very quick car. The C5, the C6 are very quick cars, but also quite edgy. Big wide tires and a front engine with too much torque and power. It's just an edgy ride. So while my goal was for rFactor to make cars that are drivable at the limit, the Corvette isn't really the best choice for that. This car, on the other hand, would be a much better choice. So if Siim was doing this car all those years ago, it would have been a better example of how drivable rFactor can be. But better late than never. Some of you may not have uninstalled rFactor still. If you think the driving is messy, yep. It is. So what separates like the Corvette from something like the NSX. Well, not just because Senna drove it, but in general, NSX is so different. It's got much less power. It's not even that light. The original NSX wasn't that light, but it's got narrow tires. It's got 195 on the front and I believe 205 or 225 at the rear, and you don't really get the braking performance from them. Yeah. And the tires have sidewalls as well. Those Corvette tires have 20-inch rims, 19-inch with 35 section or 30 or even 25 on the back of the ZR1. There's no sidewall, there's absolutely no give. So the slip angles are really small, whereas in this car you got less grip and you got sidewalls, so everything is so much more progressive and it moves around a bit. It's got less power, less torque, mid-engines, so you actually have traction, which you don't have in a Corvette. So this makes it such a nicer car to drive, easier car to drive quickly. Because of the slip angles, it's got power and traction that match, and you're just going less quickly because there is much less grip. And that makes cars so much more fun, actually. There is something about doing 7 minutes 20 something on the Nürburgring in a Corvette, but a bit like the new Toyota GT86, fun doesn't have to happen at 1.1 G. Give the car some narrower tires and the fun happens for mortals. And it's able to control the car everywhere. As usual, the model is really nice looking. The cockpit isn't quite done yet, got no dials, but I can feel I'm going fairly quickly here. And here's this little brow. There he goes again with his brows, and then the car always gets a little light. Spoon. Always difficult. Car is really progressive when you lift off, especially if you lift off and jerk the steering a little bit. You can get oversteer on entry or off throttle, but it's quite stable, and because of the slip angles it doesn't happen in a nanosecond. Should shift to fifth there, I think. You got some time. Let's brake. Right time here now. See, there's a bit of a lift there. No problem at all. Lift and steering together. This is the 5-speed box. Eventually they went to 6-speed and they changed the NSX a bit through its life. Is this too late? Well, you could call it too late. So if I lift and jerk it and then add some throttle, well, I didn't have the line there, but it's come about. So you can be beautifully smooth with everything. You see the body roll probably in the video. It really builds up, it gives you time and confidence. It's not so much understeer or oversteer, it really is something you can control once you get used to the car. See, that's nice. Third here, the red line, and then on the brakes you can see it's moving around. Let's do a Scandinavian, see if we're gonna. No problem at all. And I don't care if I'm that much slower in this car than in a Corvette. It's just so much more involving, easier to drive. Here's the brow again. Ooh. Let's brake into the corner a little bit. Bit of understeer. Lift. Turns into a bit of oversteer. Neutral, understeer. Very wide. But it's rubbish and for your lap time. But you're not flying off the road. You're just losing time and you look a bit like an idiot. I'll leave it in fourth. It's not flat out, the 130R in this car. Oh, this is too quick. Over the ground, holy crap. Oh, and there's a chicane. In fact, I believe, I'm not really a knowledge base on this car, but I believe the performance was a bit disappointing even at the time compared to some of the European cars. And that's why they ended up making the R model, which was quite a bit lighter. But if you look at the data for like the dampers, which is available, they really stiffened it up. The suspension and the damping really moved it out of the road car territory and really went into the race car zone. And that's kind of not really the point. I think Honda got carried away and went for the lap times, whereas this original NSX with its softer suspension and very progressive feel may even be acceptable on normal roads. If you look at the specs for the R version, it's so much stiffer and the dampers are such a lot harder. I don't think you want to drive that on a public road, whereas this may not work that well on the track, but it's actually a car you wouldn't drive it on the track all the time if you could have it. It would be on Scandinavian, too fast in, no worries. So the original NSX is much more of a road car that you apparently, when you read that stuff on the internet, you may be able to live with every day, and that's nice. And you can see how much fun I'm having. Sort of four-wheel sliding there, very progressive. Bit of a lift here, and then you can get a big notch of oversteer, but it's all happening so manageable. And the new camera doesn't have the time limit my old one had. In fact, my old camera was from 7 years ago. I scared myself saying how old it was by almost missing. "7 years old, my old camera, yes. It was a Canon S3 IS, and by that time it was amazing because it did 640 by 480 video. So all my videos up until now have been upscaled and cropped from 640 480 up to 1280 720. That's cheating. But this is proper HD. Oh no, never gonna. Oh, oh, okay. It's been nice knowing everybody. Oh, yes. The talk and splat. Is the camera still running? Oh yes, 13 minutes. Holy crap. Well, like I said, it doesn't have the time limit. The other one went to 1 gigabyte, and that was about 8 minutes. And this one goes to 4 gigabytes in MP4 mode. Anyway, back to the NSX. This will be out at some point. Don't hold your breath. Oh yes. I think it will be a much better showcase of just how good rFactor can be and how drivable the car can be. How difficult it is to really nail the lap and be smooth, but how predictable the handling is and how you can dance with the car. Flick it into understeer or oversteer at will. So this is a much better example of that than the Corvette, which is a testimony to rFactor, because the Corvette should be twitchy and difficult, but really quick, fast over a lap at the Nürburgring. And just the specs of this car: less G, less power, more traction because the weight's on the rear. This should be easier to drive and with more slip angle. So by the time we finish this, I really think people will be impressed just how good rFactor is, because this is such a great car to highlight it. Such a balanced thing, and you can always control it so easily. Even though the talk and drive takes away some of the skill and drive. By the way, I absolutely despise those movies, Fast and the Furious, but I was flicking through the channels on the TV a couple of years ago, and I entered in the middle of one of those movies, I think, Fast and Furious, just when this guy was showing off to his girlfriend doing the stare and drive. So what happened was, I hope you haven't seen the film, because it's horrible, and it's not really my audience that loves those films. Audience, he said audience. The few people watching, let's not call it an audience. But anyway, he was doing the stare and drive, so he was looking his girlfriend in the eyes while driving in the middle of town. And at that point, I laughed really loudly, and I flicked to the next channel. Horrible. And I started using the stare and drive. I sort of did it a couple of times, because sometimes I have to look over my shoulder to see if the camera is still working. And I once said, this is the stare and drive. That's why I call this the talk and drive. So it's inspired by the worst movie in Hollywood history. Oh, it's gonna snap. So now you know where that comes from. It is very hot now. It's 30 degrees outside, really warm. Oh, I did the sort of stare and drive. You couldn't see my face this time, but anyway, it's really warm, so it would be really appropriate to do the Sauber video, because in a Group C car things get real hot. And with Le Mans this weekend, I believe, I'll try to do a Sauber video. That'll be hilarious. I can barely keep the NSX, which is an easy car to drive on the road while talking, so the Sauber should be fun. Okay, I'm gonna shut up for a little while now and try to show you a bit more just how nice this car is. Yeah, don't do that if it's real. Oh no, he's late again. If you get turn 1 right, you can 4-wheel drift it while braking all the way through. But usually when you announce it, it doesn't work. It's a bit over the top. That will be one thing during these talk and drives. It may seem that all the cars slide too much and I'm overdriving them. It's the slower way, believe me. It's the show-off way, which is always a bit nice. But it's also the talking that takes that 5% brain away, and that's the 5% that normally can keep me right at the limit instead of way over it. But it does the line you want. That's the green stuff. Okay, well, you may have seen some parts of nice handling. Very predictable, very believable. And it even does Scandinavian flicks. Oh, for doing it. That wasn't too bad for a spool. See if I get the 130R right this time. No. Oh dear. This is too much grip here, so that's cheating perhaps. Oh, so they see. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that. See you some other time, hopefully in a sober, sweating a lot. Bye bye.